DraftScience video. Another Pyrrho the Liar video. I've got to find some people with real integrity somewhere to actually have a conversation about the weaknesses and strengths of evidence, and where there's plenty of room for speculation regarding how the world works. But you really can't do it with these kind of fascists. 5 thumbs up. A really garbage video again. And you know, he keeps claiming he's not a liar, and then he just makes stuff up, and he constantly misparaphrases and misargues the evidence. I mean, distorts it in plain truth. Willful and deliberate.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a way to test. All right.
Oh, it sped up a
Hello.
little bit. Oh, that was annoying.
Not edited. I wanted to talk about Gary's science.
As opposed to what? Somebody around here is making edited videos?
Versus Gary's religion. It's interesting. I don't think I would have gone there if Gary wasn't bringing it up. But
Yeah, well, obviously, because you don't really have an argument that I'm doing what you're doing, which is distorting evidence in support of a theory. So, yeah, and claiming an authority and claiming that it's just plain factual. God must exist.
he's accusing, let's just say, me and Heinz for the day, the whole scientific.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I'm accusing all of you little petty weasels of being invested in a faith. You like the idea of your freeness, whatever that is. A universe that allows for to fudge the truth.
Establishment, of which I'm not a part, right? So I have my own opinions. I don't think the scientific establishment has all the answers. But in this...
Yes, right. But you defend the parts that you like, and then you ignore the parts you don't, like a typical religious person. The evidence that indicates that, oh, there must be a God, yes, you'll accept, and all the evidence that indicates there's no God, you won't accept.
Religion issue, I'm in the school that's saying general relativity is the best theory we have in that regard.
Okay, so it's the best theory when you really don't pay any attention to any alternative theory, and that's really the whole point here, right? I mean, I've presented an alternative theory, and you've paid no attention to the details, paid no attention to even the general idea of it, in the sense that you've even distorted that and perverted it.
It's not wrong, it might be incomplete.
Whatever, it may be incomplete. So this is all the backpedaling. It's proven, but well, it's not entirely proven.
There might be better metaphors that we'll use when we get a...
Oh, there might be better metaphors. See, so he's not even seeking a model or an accurate description. The best he can hope for is some idiotic metaphor. And not that it's idiotic, but I mean, it's really not a metaphor. The theory of relativity is not a metaphor. It's an explicit statement of saying this is what's really happening. Time changes. The thing having velocity isn't changing. No, the actual physical universe changes, and time does something different. It functions differently.
More complete theory, but...
Whatever more complete means. So how would you complete your theory of relativity? I mean, it's a kind of a simple idea. You're saying somehow light doesn't have to obey the same rules light obeys when it's in the free universe, when it's in one of your personal I get to change it frames.
Things like the speed of light, they work the way that general relativity says.
Says you. So again, he makes that statement as if it's an axiom. You see that? The speed of light works the way general relativity says. No, the argument is no, the speed of light works exactly the opposite of this theory of relativity. The speed of light is a constant. It's always doing the same exact thing. And you moving things, you're the fucktards. You're the ones that are broken. You're the ones that are changing.
I say. Gary likens that to a religion, that we just have a faith in our Pope. Richard Feynman, hallowed be his name, and our bishops like Susskind and Seth Lloyd. And it's funny.
Yes, and it really comes down to that because they just make up shit. I mean, antiparticles, right? These things that only exist inside of accelerators and only exist for the briefest of milliseconds, and yet we think this is how physics works. I mean, so they make up a whole theory based on the scantest bit of evidence, and they say every particle has its own antiparticle. So not only is there dark energy and dark matter, there are a ton. There's a whole universe full of antiparticles that never found. You know, they can only anti with their original particle, their little partner particle. So they can bump into other ones and it doesn't matter somehow. But they can only annihilate when they find their true love. I mean, these are insane theories. I can't make any sense out of that crap.
Because these ideas of the last 100 years are what destroyed and blew up God. I mean,
what a pile of shit that is. So, I mean, it would have been true in the beginning, when quantum electrodynamics existed and you were finding out that, yes, the universe is a clockwork, and Einstein even used words like that. Einstein was defending this notion that it's an explicit quantizable universe, and there's no spooky anything, action, thought, anything, nothing spooky. And yeah, so that was win. But then you people got a hold of it and turned it into frickin' unicorns of Heisenberg and entanglements.
And what's left is like piles of snow inevitably melting in the springtime. I mean, it's just...
Well, it's a silly argument to make that religion's dying in the world when it's not. And I think part of the reason is because you've left the door open, because you people are wishy-washy, mishy-mushy realists. Your description of reality is you clearly have no obedience to any kind of set of facts. So you're either conspiracy nuts or like Catholic nihilist kooks, or like you, wishy-washy, whatever, investors in Hopi, the wonder unicorn.
The shadow of his former self. And that's the work of these ideas, because these ideas seemed utterly incompatible. And
they still are. It's not that just they seem it. They are, by explicit evidence, incompatible and paradoxical in their implications.
And that goes back to Copernicus and Galileo.
So again, he keeps going back to the past where they have no evidence and they just speculate. So we know Newton believed in angels and demons and all kinds of wacky shit. All right, so we just forget about that crap because, yeah, okay, the world was still a little bit too confusing, I guess. And even a smart guy could be a complete fucktard. And other people could make up other stuff and envision other things, but there wasn't any evidence of this shit. So again, there's no point in talking about Galileo's relativity because he had no evidence of any theory of relativity on the nuclear level. All he had was the evidence of, hey, when you get accelerated and you're up to speed, everything calms down and your velocity doesn't seem to bother you anymore. That's all he had.
Which is also the era that Gary starts disagreeing with the basic principles that are proposed.
I disagree that the evidence is good for any of this mush. And I speculate, like UFOs, it's the when you see something in the sky, to think it's a UFO is to jump, okay, to a foolish conclusion. That because there's a spot in the sky or a cigar flying by, I should think there's little creatures inside who are spying on me. That's stupid.
Gary does not believe in the flat Earth. So there's that, but
I don't know. It just, you do. You believe in immigration is good for America and it won't turn it into some other country really quick. No threat whatsoever. Idiot. Wait till he's living under Sharia law.
these principles that they were offensive to the church, not at first. I mean, the church supported Copernicus's work, and it was not particularly controversial. People were just interested in these speculations, part of the intellectualism going on in the Catholic Church at the time. But
well, whatever. I mean, that the story of what the church did, or who they did kill people, and and so they did send messages. So let's not pretend that they were all friendly with the science, because they found it, they saw it as a threat.
Over time, the controversies grew because they offended the sensibilities of common sense. Like, it was sort of like, why would God do something silly that made no sense? God was the ultimate sensible thing.
Okay, so that's another one of his theories, that God was a sensible theory. Well, in my opinion, it wasn't a very sensible theory, and most people didn't really believe in it, right? They would play the game, but we all know they really didn't believe in God, okay? That's why the preachers had to keep preaching all the time. It's because people were sinning all the time and breaking all the rules all the time because they really didn't believe this fucking story. And that's the evidence you see throughout history, is people really don't believe in this shit. They all sit there and salute the flag when everybody's watching, and then when nobody's watching, they use it for toilet paper.
In the intellectual world, God basically thought in pure, perfect, infallible logic. That became an idea, a metaphor for what...
Well, I'm just saying that most people didn't see anything too fucking logical, and when they, all you had to do is crack that Bible open on almost any page, and you're not going to find a whole great pile of logic there.
It was possible to have a God. This is the principle of presuppositional apologetics to this day, a logical argument for God, or rather, an argument...
Well, whatever. There's no logical argument for God. God was just, as you people are doing, it was a gap filler. So the reckless and the sloppy and the lazy, like yourself, sit there and jump to the first, somebody give me any kind of story. And so somebody says, well, maybe Goldilocks, captured some bears and dressed them in clothes, and so just give me any kind of story. They found a tire on the side of the road, a mile from Nicole Simpson's house, and just, it was one of those South American drug gangs. We're going to put a tire on her and burn her, but the tire fell out of the car. See, so you just make up any kind of wacky story and you go with it, because you really don't care about finding the truth, and you're lousy trial lawyers, and you just suck at anything called being just or logical, because you're stupid. You're really stupid. You have no intellectual depth to understand when you're being duped.
Forgot, based on the fact that logic even exists in the first place, based on the fact that with your intuition you can figure out right and wrong, or the laws of physics, and this is how Gary goes about it.
Yeah, bullshit again. This isn't about intuition. It's just a silly... Intuition is what? Like, I like apples more than I like oranges? What the fuck are you talking about? It's what fits with what you know the world to be. And if somebody tells me that, yes, because they saw a piece of light in the sky, they know we're being spied on by Martians, I'm going to say, well, was that all you got? I mean, it's kind of an extraordinary explanation. I'm saying that most of the statements made by physics in the last 100 years are extraordinary statements about function, and they have shit for evidence.
He's using his built-in logic in his brain, and of course...
Yeah, the logic is facts, and I've said this in videos over and over again. There's no such thing as logic. There's facts and plus and minus signs and an equal sign. That's all there is. There's facts. 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 That's all you have. There's nothing else. All right? And you either have things that are, when you call something a fact, you should be sure it's a fact. You should be sure it's strongly evidenced. And my argument is that's not the kind of logic you people are doing. You're saying any evidence is hard, good evidence. I mean, he just has to look like the drawing of the criminal a little bit. Just a little bit like him.
Of course, that is sufficient to explain the universe. His whole principle is that nothing...
Well, yeah, my whole principle is that the story you idiots are telling is preposterous. Photons, the smallest thing in the universe, have all these powers, and when they can figure out what slit to go through, and then they can do all this math, and then figure out where to land, do all this bullshit. Yeah, it's a silly story. Heisenberg, silly story. Huygens, silly story. Dark matter, silly story. Annihilating things, silly story.
Devises.
Temporarily borrowing energy. That's what they actually believe, the field theorists. They actually believe you can temporarily borrow energy to have an interaction, and then you can create something in your interaction by creating a perturbation or something, and then somehow you can deposit that new energy into your account. But you never really pay back the original. I mean, the stuff you borrowed.
Sensibilities can be taken seriously. And he has big void blank spots in...
Yes, right. Whatever this statement is. Big void blank spots. So this is where you lie some more. All right, where you mischaracterize and say, somehow I don't understand your silly argument. I do understand your silly argument. I think it's a silly argument. I don't think you've answered any of the questions.
What he will understand, and he'll kind of go back and forth between hearing it, and he's watched videos that said it, and you can at this point see what he's willfully ignoring.
Okay, so this is where he's lying again. So I willfully ignored something. I keep pleading for people to tell me what I willfully ignored. You lying piece of shit. I mean, really, I should be able to sue you for this kind of shit and say, come on, go to court. Let's go to court, and let's see you prove where I did this willfully ignore something. I'm pleading with you to point out the thing I need to argue. I mean, I play the Feynman clip of Feynman saying, this works for gravity, and you're the one denying Feynman said it. I mean, you're an amazing liar.
The Feynman video where they use as support that Feynman says, oh, but there's a problem. It would cause this other thing we don't...
Yes, a problem not related to it satisfying all the rules of gravity. A problem not related, where you could just totally ignore it. Just like bent space. If I never even brought up the idea of, well, how does bent space move through space without getting warped, you could just ignore it and just say, yeah, it just does. And everything would work fine. And Mach gravity works perfectly fine as long as you don't think about friction with the field. So you just ignore it and it all works perfectly. That's the truth, asshole. So lie about it some more, liar. I mean, Feynman was explicit. The whole point of bringing up the example was to point out here's a really good theory. But it's got a catch. But it's really good at doing gravity. It sucks at doing, I'm going to go fly to another galaxy.
See. And to be specific, for example, there's this velocity thing, and the latest example, but it was with the spaceship. You think if you shoot a flashlight, well, let's just do this one example. The Earth is estimated to be going with various Doppler shift kind of readings of nearby stars and things like that.
Right, and Doppler shift is another thing I don't think you people understand.
They have an estimate of the speed of the sun rotating around the galaxy, right? It's a long way, so even though the curve is very slow arc and everything, we're going pretty fast, according to the scientific estimate at the moment, 1,000th of the speed of light. And that is pretty fast. So Gary thinks that, let's say that it's...
3,000 miles a second, I guess it comes down to, right? Yeah, 3,000 meters per second. It's got to be faster than that. 1,000th of 3 million meters. That would be 3,000.
Let's say it's going around there. Let's say it's sunrise. I think I got that right. It's sunrise. And so if you point a laser straight up in the sky, it's pointing in the direction that the Earth is moving around the sun. Oh, wait, this is more complicated because the solar system's like at 60 degrees off of the planet.
All right, look, this argument came up, and he still hasn't answered the point. Okay, let's say I'm on a flatbed spaceship, and I'm standing still, and I'm wearing little magnetic boots, and all this stuff is magnetized and stuck to the outside of the spaceship. So the spaceship is completely, I'm on the outside of it, and I'm standing right there doing my little experiments. Okay, so I have basically set up an experiment that'll be a little light emitter, and then 4 feet away there'll be a hole, and those two things are directly perpendicular from each other. And so now I'm going to go speed up and go this, whatever, 80% of the speed of light or some stupid thing like that. And, even at half the speed of light, my math works out fine in the sense that, so Pyrrho's saying that, and the target is a target with a hole in it. Okay, so if you go directly perpendicular, the light goes right through the hole. Alright, so I go 1/2 the speed of light in this direction, and now I shoot my little photons, and Pyrrho says I'll be able to watch the photons go right through that perpendicular hole and right into space. And my argument is the only way that can happen is the obvious math that you have to go 2 velocities at the same time, and that means you are going faster than the speed of light, the hypotenusy thing. And that means this light that left is going faster than the speed of light, because that's the only way you're going to get these photons into that hole, because this target is moving away, and that's just a fact. Okay, when the light leaves, the target moves. The light doesn't move, the target moves. Light doesn't carry momentum. My argument in defense of that is I think NASA will clearly tell you that when they look at Saturn through a telescope, they're seeing where Saturn was. They're seeing the position Saturn was in. Okay? They're seeing the past. They're not seeing where Saturn is now. They're seeing where Saturn was. Because the light didn't move with Saturn. The light doesn't have 2 momentums. It didn't bend its way here. Okay? So I'm just saying that so the paradox he creates here, he didn't explain. So if the light goes, if he's true, the light goes through the hole. This light has to be going faster than c. It has to go be plus, some percentage of c, faster than c. There's no other explanation. My argument is the simple argument is the target moves half the speed of light away, so the light ends up hitting, 2 feet behind the target. And that's what happens. I go half the speed of light, the light hits 2 feet behind the target, if this is 4 feet. And that's what happens. That's the truth.
Plane of the galaxy.
Now let's use the flashlight example. Okay, so let's say I'm going 99% of the speed of light, because this is an example I think he's using here. So I'm going 99% the speed of light, and I shine my flashlight forward. He's saying he'll see the light leave at the speed of light. So he'll see this leave him at c. I say the only way that's possible is he has to travel a gazillion miles. So if he has a window, he'll see the entire universe go speeding by at 1,000,000 times the speed of light, something like that. Because the only way he can see this light leave at c is that the only way he could do that is that he has to see this speed, the difference between these 2 speeds has to equal c. So the difference between these 2 speeds, 99% of c and c, has to equal c. And to do that, you're going to have to multiply by a huge, giant, preposterously giant number. So he has to, and so essentially what it comes down to is your time, your broken matter has to be so bad that you're only awake 1 second of every week. So your eyes only open for 1 second once a week, and then you could see the light come out of your flashlight and move the speed of light. But it could only happen that way. It's probably even worse than that. You're awake for 1 second in a year. That's probably the only way you could see that light leave the flashlight, is you have to be awake only 1 second out of an entire year. Truth.
So let me just put it this way. So let's say you calculate the direction you need to point the laser in the direction the Earth is going, right, at sunrise. And so the image is you're shooting the laser headlong in the direction it's going at that second. And so the light is going at light speed. Gary and I would both say that, but we mean slightly different things by it. But it's going light speed. So and here's the difference. The Earth is going 1/1000th of the speed of light. Gary thinks, therefore, that the relative motion of you looking, if you could, at those photons or whatever, the beam of light, it's going actually 999 thousandths, right? And because we're going 1/1000th, we're catching up with it. This is how it would be with a water wave. If you drop a rock in the water and the wave starts going away at 4 miles an hour, and you hop in your boat and go 4 miles an hour, then you'll go right along with the wave. Well, you have to go a little faster to catch up with the wave at first. But we're saying light doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're essentially saying that if I'm paddling 4 miles an hour and I throw a rock outside the boat, that the rock will make a wave that will go 4 miles ahead of me, 4 miles an hour ahead of me. Let's say that the rock makes a wave that goes 4 miles an hour. That's your argument. So the rock wave has to essentially go 8 miles an hour if it's going to go 4 miles an hour ahead of you. And it don't do that. And, we keeps getting, this is such a mistake. I mean, I argued it in the Feynman video even. I mean, this whole idea, you got to be really careful using physical analogies for things because, later he's going to bring up bullets again. And so I was thinking of another way of looking at that, So say if you do fire a bullet ahead of you, you're on a train going 20,000 miles an hour, let's say, and you fire a gun. And let's say the bullet goes 20,000 miles an hour. I don't know what the real number is, but something like that. Anyway, we know from this physical world that the bullet carries my momentum. So the bullet will actually be going 40,000 miles an hour. And that's why I'll see it leave like a regular bullet. Because it's going to carry the momentum of the gun. Light doesn't carry the momentum of the thing that fires it. Okay? You can't make light go faster. So it doesn't matter how fast something's moving. When it shoots a photon, the photon goes the speed of light. It doesn't carry momentum. That's the argument here. And you're saying something else happens when you're in your little special frames. What I'm saying is no, nothing else ever happens. This is always true about light. Light never carries momentum of the thing that fired it. Light does as soon as you drop light, it's like its own little animal. It's free of the circumstance of its creation. And all it has is a vector of direction, and it goes there at the speed of c. It doesn't care who dropped it, doesn't care how it was dropped, doesn't care how fast or slow they were going. It just doesn't matter to light. And the only thing you can change is the frequency, because it's like dropping rocks. If I'm moving fast forward and I drop rocks, the rocks are going to end up getting dropped at a higher rate because I'm catching up on the rock I dropped before. So that'll compress the frequency. And if I drop them out the trunk, the space between them will get wider because I'm making the distance further as I'm dropping them. So the gun's still firing the same rate, but the car movement is breaking the frequency. So you can change the frequency of light, but you can't change the fact of it, the speed of it. Now make a counter argument to the statement I just made. Light doesn't carry the momentum of the thing that emits it.
And Gary keeps saying that we don't offer an explanation. What are we talking about? And offering things as though they're paradoxes.
You don't offer an explanation even within your own theory as to how it is possible. That's all I'm just saying. If the light goes through the hole, it had to be going faster than the speed of light relative to the rest of the universe, and therefore, when it goes through the hole, it's free, it's in the real universe, and it's going faster than the speed of light. That's the problem you create with your I can make it go forward and go through the hole. I can bend it.
We don't explain how it is that if something's going really fast, the gravity on one side isn't bunched up. But the answer is, once again, we've explained our understanding of it, and we've also...
Yes, Jesus has water walking moccasins. Okay, that's your answer. My theory has special powers, and so it can do special things. Your theory doesn't. Ha ha. That's all you're saying. It's a special power.
Said this term that can be Googled that we all actually know. And I've been arguing this with Gary for 10 years, and it's relativity. It's general relativity. Einstein's relativity.
I know what it is. And what I'm saying is it's a pile of crap. Time is a function. It's not a dimension. Einstein was full of shit. Shit, can I say it any more clearly? It was just a stupid thing to do, to shove time in next to this fake bent space shit. The bent space shit is bullshit, and the fact that he shoved time into it, it's just like, let's make physics not physics anymore, because then we won't have to deal with it. We'll just make everything a dimension, and then we can give all the dimensions special attributes, and now we won't have to bother with doing physics, because it can be a religion.
That's the theory that explains why the gravity wouldn't bunch up on...
It doesn't explain why it doesn't. It doesn't explain how you break the constant. How do you sit there and tell me that it's both going the speed of light and not going the speed of light? Either the gravity moves at the speed of light or it doesn't.
One side of the sun as it flies around. From the point of view of this...
Again, this point of view crap has absolutely nothing to do with the physical reality. We're not talking about something's point of view. We're talking about what happens in the absolute sense. What's the absolute fact, truth of the circumstance? What actually happens? And you can't have it both ways. Your frames are open to reality. Again, you keep doing these thought experiments as if there is no other reference, as if we can't look out the window. And we can. And if you looked out the window when all this bullshit is happening, you'd realize, oh shit, I'm fucked up as I just went a gazillion miles an hour from my perception. That's ludicrous. Obviously that didn't happen, so something the fuck else happened.
Locality, right? From way out somewhere else looking here at a different velocity, they will see some compressions. But it all works out because of the...
Oh, yeah, no. If they see them, then they exist. And that means things have to be affected by the change. So I'm just saying you have to account for it. Again, you're just evading the argument. So, you're saying that Feynman's raindrop analogy is a good enough explanation to defeat particle gravity because you say that's a complete proof. And then when I argue, well, I can turn that crap, that simplicity on your own fucking theories, and this is what you do to counter-argue. You provide the vacuous, well, yes, from somewhere it might look like it is, and from somewhere else it looks like it isn't. And that's perfectly fine, because we're good with dualities. We love the duality stuff. We love having two descriptions of reality. He's guilty, and he is also innocent. Yes, he did it, but he did not do it. That's physics.
Dilation of space and time. Mathematically.
Yeah, whatever. It's not dilation of space, okay? Space is bent. Time is dilated. So get your own theory right, please.
I mean, what everyone sees is consistent.
Whatever, you just said that it isn't consistent. You just said somebody else looking at it could see that the waves are compressed. And now you're saying, no, everybody sees the same thing, which is there's no compression because it's Jesus sandals.
For them. But the on-the-spot conditions would be a little bit different.
So you just said it's both consistent and now it's inconsistent again. So you've changed your mind now 3 times in, 4 sentences?
All right, so the answer of the explanation of how could that work is general relativity.
So again, you just keep saying it's Jesus slippers. The answer is Jesus slippers, for fuck's sake. He had Jesus slippers. You know, God was big on this whole footwear thing. I mean, that's just a fact. Everybody knows it. I mean, he was really big on, Moses, take off your shoes before you go into the holy circle and talk to the flaming bush. So, I mean, God was really big on footwear and, appropriate uses of them. They have their place. So, yes, Jesus had walking on water shoes.
Gary says we haven't even given an explanation, but the explanation is general relativity.
Now, so he said it again, the same exact sentence. The explanation is Jesus slippers.
Now, Gary rejects general relativity.
Yes, I reject that as an answer. That does not answer the question. To say God can put dinosaur fossils in the ground if he wants to is a silly defense.
Right? But what he says is that there isn't even an explanation. The explanation is general relativity.
So he said it 3 times. The explanation is Jesus slippers. Fuck.
And when I point out, hey, we gave an explanation to general relativity.
Yes, okay, Jesus slippers, right. Well, that's not nearly good enough. Okay, so yeah, I'm totally unsatisfied with the Jesus slipper defense because I would like to give particle gravity the Jesus slipper defense if I may. If I may undo Feynman's critique by just saying Jesus slippers, well, that makes it a lot easier than having to sit here and figure out a whole theory of inertia, which I did instead, and which I explained, and which you don't have any rational critique of beyond, I don't like it. Too fishy.
This video is like, yeah, but I reject that. It's bullshit. You know, it's not very well evidenced. Okay, but it exists.
Okay, but it exists. So that's another great. Wow, you really, that really gets to the jury when you do the old, hey, there's evidence, but hey, fuck it.
And this is why I have this term, illusions exist.
If the glove don't fit, it quit. Yeah. Right.
Phrase, this idea, illusions exist, because people make this mistake.
Again, the illusions exist bullshit, so fuck this nonsense. I mean, who wants to talk to some asshole whose axiom is, let's talk about our delusions. They're not illusions, they're delusions. I mean, what we're really trying to do is sit there and say, well, can we really do this? Can we actually have a fair trial and have like some kind of discipline about what kind of evidence you can present and what kind of arguments are valid, and that we're really not going to let you come in with the we found a tire on Highway 74 1.7 miles away and somehow it's related to this murder, and we're not going to let you use Jesus slipper defense
all the time. They've rejected something because it's an illusion, basically. He also says we're liars, but
you're a preposterous fucking liar. I mean, a disgusting liar. You put words in my mouth I never spoke, and then you sit there and selectively pervert exposure to evidence in an effort to propagandize. You don't present the evidence fairly. You distort it and pervert it. That's lying.
I obviously believe that from the evidence we've seen, and experiments I or you we have read, but in my case me, that I've read, they look like general relativity.
They look like. So again, it's just, I'm just saying that, so the scant evidence we have is, the one fact we both agree on is that there's a function of time screwed up, okay, in the sense that I call it an atomic metabolism problem, okay, that atoms really don't like velocity. It fucks them up. It gives them another agenda, and they can't go about their business, what they were doing before, if they have to do this other shit called moving. And so it distracts them from their usual daily cutting of the grass and washing of the dishes and all the other stuff they have to do, because they have to do this moving thing. And so I've used simple analogies like, if you're dancing and I ask you as fast as you can, I say, dance as fast as you can. And then I say, well, now move to your right. You're going to realize I can't dance as fast anymore. I have to do this timeshare thing. Well, more likely I have to do this multitasking thing. And the multitasking thing costs energy. And the only place I can get the energy from is from the stuff I was doing before. Because I don't have any extra. So I have to stop using energy to do what I was doing before to now do this moving thing.
Explains the phenomena in those experiments. Now, as I said, it's not complete. It doesn't explain chemistry or love or lots of things it doesn't.
Oh, God. Love. You want me to explain love? It's not that complicated. It's, simple biological process, really. You're embiggened, with a notion of possession and the desire to own and fuck.
Talk about. But of those things, the evidence that's relevant in this theory, they correlate really well. Okay, so they correlate really well. So this is one of his arguments, that the evidence is really, really strong. And so I could argue, well, obviously in the two-slit experiment, there's a shitty correlation between single slit in water and single slit in light. Shitty correlation, just absolutely shitty. And yet, you're going to claim there's this wonderful correlation.
And then I could make the same argument here. Relativity has huge problems where there's a lack of correlation with logic and reasoning. And yet you'll just sit there and pretend these paradoxical problems don't exist.
So I think that the universe looks like general relativity holds true.
I think that the universe looks like general relativity holds true. So again, this is your testimony. So I'm just going to do that. What do they call that? Hearsay evidence. I think so. Yeah, the argument from I think so.
Gary's saying that's an illusion.
No, I'm saying it's a fucking idiotic delusion.
Also says no, it's a lie. But if you assume I'm not...
No, I'm saying you're lying about the evidence. I'm not saying you're lying about your belief in your delusion. Yes, you are delusional. I'll concede. You have a delusion.
I'm not lying and I believe it. That
I didn't say you didn't believe it. I said you're cheating the evidence. You're a crooked, lying trial lawyer. You're a faker. You're not honest. You're dishonest.
The fact that the world looks that way is an illusion, because...
No, I'm saying I don't see the world that way, so obviously I don't think it's a fact that it looks that way in the generic sense. It looks that way to you. It doesn't look that way to me.
Of my love of waves and their woo-woo nature. Something we've never seen in nature, a wave. And I just...
Yeah, like somebody's, that's a little straw man thrown in. See, that's another one of his little perversions. Like, somehow I'm denying the existence of waves. No, I'm denying that they're physics. Physics is underneath the wave. Physics is what makes the wave happen. Okay? The wave is a consequence of physics. It isn't physics.
Love them, which is true. And, the great wave phenomenon is great. The math is beautiful. It's just a wonderful...
Oh, yeah, whatever. Beautiful math. Oh, it has beautiful little numbers. They're all kind of roundy. And it's got a lot of sine thetas. And I just love a little bit of lambda. Ooh. Yeah, sorry, I don't get that either.
Wonderful, wonderful thing.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, it's a relationship between distance and spacing and momentum. Oh, a wonderful, wonderful thing.
So, I am subject to an illusion. It seems to me
a delusion, yes.
The world fits general relativity. He said,
okay, again, it seems to me the world fits general relativity. This is really useless testimony. We really got to do more of this evidence stuff.
They know it doesn't. It's an illusion. And then he acts like, therefore it doesn't exist. And I've been...
No, I'm arguing it doesn't exist. It is nonsense, and I'm demonstrating why it's nonsense. I'm explaining why I think it's absolute nonsense, because I think light is nothing like bullets fired out of a gun. And I can't give the bullet extra momentum. I can't give light momentum. I can't move my hand this way and make light go bendy. I can't do that. That's my theory. Light equal sign slash bullets. Not alike. Waves, single slit in water, equal sign slash light, single slit.
Arguing this with him for 10 years, and still he's confused that I say...
No, I'm not confused. You're an idiot and a liar. That I'm sure of.
The light or the gravity or any of the phenomena that go at light speed, that they go away at light speed relative to you if you're at a...
Again, so he's going to keep just saying it. They go away from you relative, so it's yes, light is like a bullet. So, if I'm moving 1,000,000 miles an hour and I shoot my light gun, the light's going to go my speed plus its speed. Because light is like bullets.
Constant velocity. They go away at light speed.
And baseballs and frisbees and anything else you could throw.
But how could that happen if you're in the velocity? Because velocity is relative, and from your point of view, you're always at still, and so that...
Again, it's not about points of view. It's about what actually physically happens. Does the light go through the fucking hole or not? Obviously, to go through the fucking hole, the light would have to go in this forward direction, and for you to see this light move the speed of light, if we're going to concede that the light actually moves the speed of light, then to hit the target in this forward position, the light would have to go faster than the speed of light, and then when it went through the hole, it would be going faster than the speed of light, and that's a fact, and a fact you haven't dealt with.
is maintained. And how does that work from other people that do see the light go away and do see you tagging the light? It's because your space and time are warped.
Again, it's none of that's happening. You're asleep for a fucking year and you're awake for 1 second. You're asleep for a year and then you're awake for 1 second. You travel. If it's a flashlight and you see the light leave at the speed of light when you're traveling 99% of the speed of light, to see that happen, you have to travel 1 gazillion bazillion miles. To actually see that happen would require you to travel around the universe like 40 times or something.
From what they see and what they would experience, how they would get the photons.
Well, again, so it's not how anybody gets anything. It's about what actually happens. Light's a constant. You people want to break it. I'm saying you can't break it. The end. Okay? Light wins, we lose. Perception is crap. It doesn't mean a goddamn fucking thing. We're not talking about what you consciously perceive. We're talking about what actually happens. Does the light go through the fucking hole or not?
That's the theory of relativity and the point of illusion.
For you to think it does, that means it has to bend to get there. It means it has to carry your momentum. The momentum of the emitter has to move the light forward.
Exists is that if you think it's an illusion,
I think it's a fucking idiotic, delusional piece of shit. I mean, I think accepting paradoxes and dualities and all this shit is idiotic as a starting position. Yes, God exists, but he doesn't really exist. He's just a metaphor for a placeholder for a virtual God that's even more powerful because he's in the maggot field. You know, the maggot field. Deeper into the 4th level of the maggot field. Actually, he's subspace in the lower space of the maggot field of the bent crookedness. Fuck that. Yeah, it sounds like childish crap.
My looking at the world and seeing that it does work that way, they proved it.
Okay, there we go. So now we have the statement again. They proved it. They proved it. So again, I'm sitting here saying, where's your fucking proof? I'm saying every time I scratch your proof just a little bit, it falls into a million pieces and looks like, hey, they just smeared dog shit on the wall and said that was proof. That's not fucking proof. It's dog shit.
That doesn't mean the theory doesn't exist. Stop saying...
Again, where am I claiming the theory doesn't exist? Yes, the theory of UFOs, the theory of reptilians exists. I think it's a nonsense, a rubbish, a pile of crap, made up nonsense. It has nothing to do with actual reality. And just like reptilian theory, your nonsense is crap. It's nonsense. It's bullshit. It's a silly, stupid fable. And the way you are so aggressively defending it just makes you a religious kook, because that's all religion is a silly, stupid fable.
And you haven't been told how it could possibly be that the raindrop...
You still haven't explained a goddamn fucking thing. To keep saying relativity, relativity, relativity to deal with a paradox is a nonsense. Jesus' water slippers.
Theory, the raindrop explanation, raindrop metaphor, doesn't apply to space deformations in relativity. That's why. That's true. That's something that...
Again, you didn't explain it. You didn't give any explanation. You just made a denial. You contradicted yourself 3 times in talking about it. First you said the observer sees something different. Then you said they don't see anything different. And then you said there's a consistency. And now there's not a consistency. You can't even make up your mind about what the fucking truth of even the circumstances are of your own fucking thought experiment.
To be explained. And that's the explanation. Right.
Okay, it's not, and I'm saying quite overtly, if that's all you people need is the magic slipper explanation, then yes, you're fucked in the head.
That since you can't tell, there is no privileged at-rest frame, that there might be an average of the universe, average velocity, or an at-rest, there might...
Yes, there might be, yes, if there's a maximum speed, there might be a minimum speed called 0. Yeah, that might be true. Yeah, maybe there, yeah. Maybe you can go exactly the opposite of the speed of light. 0 miles an hour. Yeah, maybe that's possible. Maybe.
Be some anchor you could even in a relativistic universe hold on to, but there would be some incidental nature to it, because if this part of...
There'd be some incidental nature to it. You'd still be relativitying. Shit, even if, you'd still be time dilating. A little bit. Maybe. Some. Be a little bit asleep. Still have to take a nap.
relativity and Galilean relativity are true, that
again, Galilean relativity based on absolutely no evidence beyond, hey, you know, once the boat gets up to speed, you know, you can just put something on the table and it doesn't move or anything.
you fundamentally can't tell what velocity you're at. If you're just coasting...
Again, so you're saying fundamentally. I'm saying it's not a fundamental rule. No, if you have a spaceship, you can put a window in it. You can see the universe out the window, okay? And you can know exactly, okay, hey, if I'm seeing light leave at the speed of light, I just went a gazillion miles an hour, which means, hey, the whole universe went speeding by at a gazillion miles an hour.
on what they call an inertial frame. That's the same as being at rest. It's always relative to something else. And
yeah, blah 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 blah. I mean, these aren't explanations. And again, my alternative theory, okay, just should brace yourself for how wacky this is. My alternative theory is when you give something velocity, the metabolism of the atoms, the nuclear metabolism, changes, and therefore almost any kind of clock you make will not tell very good time. If it's a sundial, it'll really suck in no gravity. It doesn't work at all. But, you know, depending on what your clock is based on, what kind of mechanism it has, it will degrade as you speed it up faster and faster. Now, we don't really tax anything. You know, the fastest thing we have is 20,000 miles a second or something. Very small speed by comparison. No, 20,000 miles an hour or something like that.
He's like, but the momentum would go up and down. Yeah, relativistic momentum. The momentum of the bullet relative to you is different from the bullet traveling with it right behind it.
So again, these, you know, using a bullet analogy, and again, let's understand, light isn't anything like a bullet. Okay, bullets carry momentum, light doesn't.
Their relative momentum is 0, and the relative momentum to you is kabillion.
Kabillion? Again, no one's denying that if I shoot two guns at the same time that the two bullets are going to have something in common. But to call it relativity, I think is just really going way too far. It's not a wedding dress.
Okay, so just getting in the habit of checking the comments. So
Alright, he's going to talk to Cropper or talk about Cropper or some kind of bullshit like that, so we'll skip past that nonsense.
He's an objectivist / something. Ayn Randian school teacher. One.
Yeah, so he gets along with him because, yeah, so in this one circumstance they agree on how we should ruin the country by, you know, bringing in all the deplorables. Religious kooks, morons, vagabonds, dirtbags. Yeah. Bring them all in. Give them all some good old welfare. Give them some of that good old public school education that they drop out at average at, you know, 15. Great idea. And let's just ignore the statistics that demonstrate that's exactly what we're doing. We're you know, and he's going to make, he made this argument like somehow all of our science and everything is so improved by all these immigration. I mean, you'd have to prove that one. I mean, some of the immigration, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you go and you have work visas and stuff, that might be a good idea. But this idea of just letting the poor refuse in, that ain't helping us any.
Type of person. Representative Press, the thing about Gary is, yeah, he ignored that the issue was gravity, not the speed of the satellite, because both of those facts...
He ignored the fact that the issue was gravity, not the speed of the satellite. Again, no. What I clearly stated is that because we're in the stronger gravity, we're actually moving faster. That's what I argued. We really are being moved 10 meters a second per second. And we're doing it by getting pushed back up by the Earth, which means we have a high Elise rate. We have you like frequencies and waves. We're bouncing. We have a frequency that's much higher, which means we travel a lot more distance. The bits inside of us, the nuclear bits, you know, the stuff that's supposed to have something to do with physics, you know, analyzing nuclear bits. The nuclear bits are moving a lot here on Earth. They don't move as much out there.
Factors go in there, and then there's math involved putting them together.
Again, who said I was denying the mathematical relationships? Look, we haven't done experiments where you really test the math. I mean, the only experiments they've done is at very low speed, so you don't know exactly what the curve is. So the math you have is weak. I mean, the Lorentz transformations, you've only done this part of the scale, and there's 98% of the scale you haven't touched.
I think at this point I would say it's impossible to explain to Gary that there's two factors.
So again, a lie. So go ahead and prove that statement. Go ahead and prove that you've made some effort to explain something, and that I've somehow ignored the fact that there's two silly relativity theories, that exist, and that they contradict each other. But regardless, that's not the point. The point is I know perfectly well what's happening, and I have an explanation for why it happens. And that you keep ignoring, you lying piece of shit.
And that the main one is really gravity.
And where did I deny that? Where? I explicitly pointed out how, of course it's gravity. We're in the strong gravity. We're moving faster. That's why our clocks are going slower. Yeah, truth. Not the satellites. Our clocks are the fucked up ones.
Impossible. Even though he taught in his own stream of thought, he's like, even though it's going faster, it should seem to go da-da-da-da-da.
So lie some more. So that's his quote. That's as good as he does. So he's paraphrasing the evidence by saying, oh yeah, they got blood and they got this and they got that. But what blood? B word. Who cares? But that's like but. You want to go with a B word? That's silly. Hey, fuck that. Blood evidence? Pfft, garbage.
So.
Fucking lying
Metabolism. Gary uses, I actually like this, but Gary doesn't misuse and abuse it and show why, a lot of people would say you shouldn't do it at all, which he uses a lot of cognitive and biological metaphors.
Well, I use metaphors, that's right, because that's all we can use to model things, because, unless you have a lot of detail. But I've used real explicit drawings of protons and electrons. No metaphors involved except for the arrows being a metaphor for packets of energy. I've made them circular, which they don't have to be, but I've used other analogies like people dancing to explain time dilation, and I've talked about fish moving to explain inertia. Yeah, that's right, asshole.
Talking about the fish, but he talks a lot about what electrons like, and this is probably, I think, one of the reasons I end up still watching it so far is because I like kind of just, like you watch a movie, you're not saying, hey, I'm not watching this because
Yes, I'm very talented. It's true.
I think it's true. I find there's some sort of word poetry in all of that. That electrons don't like to go in a straight line, or they don't like each other, or they do, or they want this. Or they.
Now, I try to avoid the want word. I mean, every time I say it, I think of pyrrho, and I say, oh, I don't want to say it that way. But it is convenient just to just get it over with and just say, look, the tendency is.
They're enabled, or they're just shit on metabolism. I don't remember where it's metabolism, but that's perfect.
You're right. So, see, you don't remember. It's only a fundamental part of my theory, that the atomic metabolism, that's where it came from. And it has to do with the very subject of time dilation, and the very reason why clocks don't work is because their metabolism of the physics of the body moving changes. If it has to move, that means it can't do what it was doing before it was moving. Before it was doing it, atoms are always busy. Always busy. And if they have to go somewhere, well then they can't do as much of their little busy work. Another metaphor.
Example of this kind of thing. Well, look, Gary, I'll finish this way since it was about the Gary science. He has this experiment of shooting a laser, and then he sort of conveniently disagreed with me that it doesn't matter. His number.
I didn't conveniently disagree with you. Okay? We start off with a premise of doing one thing, and then you change the premise to doing something else. There was never any disagreement about the math on the specific things. You were just doing math for a different thing than I was doing math for at the same time, and that was where the error came in, the disagreement. And again, you're still ignoring the subject, which is, he's claiming I for some reason didn't do the experiment. I stated quite explicitly, I got a real powerful laser, and until these glasses arrive, okay, this is my eBay list, they're purchased, just waiting for them. Yeah, and I had Lyme disease too, jackass. But yeah, I'm going to do an experiment. I don't know exactly. First experiment I'm going to do is to figure out just how terrible the divergence is, because this is the real problem. The laser starts this big, and even if it got just this big, you're talking about a 200 to 1, 500 to 1 ratio. So the point is if movement is what's causing this divergence, the very movement I'm trying to detect is causing the divergence of the laser, that you really can't detect it if the thing you're using to detect it is already distorted 1 to 500 by the very thing you're trying to detect. So that's going to be the flaw of this experiment. So I'm trying to think of some way to get around that. And the one thing I thought of was telescopes, because when they focus on a star, right, they have to, like say they're going to take a time exposure, they have to move the telescope as the Earth rotates. And I would imagine they have to rotate the telescope as the Earth circles the Sun. So you have two motions they no doubt are accounting for by just changing the knobs on the telescope, right? So for a half an hour some guy sits there and he just keeps changing the focus to keep the little thing in the middle. And I'm saying if they recorded those movements, that might tell you an awful lot about our velocity, in the sense that you might get some indication of what it is because you're looking at something so far away. And we might avoid some of these problems. So, and that's data would just be easy to collect. I mean, they do time exposures all the time, and they must have some record of exactly what kind of navigational changes, even on the Hubble telescope. They have to do changes, I'm sure, when they're tracking something. And you just find out what those changes are, and then we'll know something about whether this is a line that just jiggles all over the place, or whether it's a line that has a weighting. But I would argue that experiment would also duplicate attempting to do this with a laser. But again, like I said, if the laser is going to diverge 1 million times the size, or 10 million times the size, you obviously can't be detecting a millimeter of change in this distance if that distance is inside a fog that thick. You got no hope. And so, he just ignores that statement, though. So, whatever. I mean, you're the one that brought up the divergence of the laser. I didn't. I mean, and it's a real problem. I mean, you can't just pretend you can just say, well, it just does it. Because what if it diverges for the very reason why we can't make perfectly coherent laser beam is the very reason that it's removing too much.
They're also measurable. And he stretches them out, making them less and less measurable. But here's the point. If the sun is going 1,000th the speed of light around the galaxy, and there's hardly any curvature there or anything, so that might as well be a linear speed, that's totally visible over a quarter of a mile, even a tenth.
Well, like I said, it should be totally visible to a telescope also that has to focus on a cluster of stars.
If you're careful. And Jesus, you could get a tenth of a mile real quick. I mean, just 50 feet in your yard, back and forth bounce 8 times or something.
Well, if you bounce it